Hey, 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 hey. Can you hear my snore box over here? It's trying to look and see how many different voices I'm going to have tonight. It's looking like a bunch. I'm seeing 2 women, main characters. I don't know about like side characters like a waitress or whatever, but let's see. 2 women and 1, 2, 3 men. Okay. It's George is snoring. That's what that noise is. All night long. Mike says she snores more than I do. I'm not really sure how to take that. How's it going? I got in here and I decided I was going to load Chrome up on my computer because I prefer Chrome over Edge. And it was doing all this other stuff. No, it's my heather. I sent her daddy a text today and I said, Georgia has been officially adopted down here. She is divorcing you guys on the mountain and will no longer be living up there, but will continue to live down here. I never did get a reply. So, let's go right. There we go. All my boobs are as big as they look on there. See there, my hands are pretty much flat. It doesn't look it. One more minute and I'm going to start because I got a late start. So I've let an extra 5 minutes sit there. So, hey, everybody. Sounds like we got more people on here. It looks like we got more people on here than what's chatting. If you're not able to chat, if you don't know where the chat button is and you see my picture, you see me, then you need to tap on me. Okay. See me right there? Just tap. See me right there? This is your chat. See me right there? This is your chat. And I've got echoes everywhere. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Tonight's book is called Fancy, and it's by Emery, Leeann, and her stuff is usually pretty dark, so I want you guys to beware. I'm not sure what it's going to entail, but just beware. Still too loud for me. If I can't hear myself, I have a squirrel right out here and it keeps getting my attention. So this is on a daily basis. So, and my camera's down here and I keep looking up there because that's just what you do. You always look at yourself. I don't know why, but my camera is actually sitting on my Kindle. So when I'm reading, you guys are going to get to see my face up close and personal. I don't know which is better. I think this might be better. Okay. And Leeann writes this by point of views and not chapters. So every time I'll say, all right, Fancy's point of view or Robert's point of view. So just know that that's like a new chapter. So, okay. Fancy. I was born to Malik and Victoria Prentice as their blue-eyed, dark-haired, bubbly baby girl they affectionately named Maria Gabriella. My father was of Italian descent, tall, dark, and handsome, from what I've been told. My mother, the all-American girl, was the apple of her parents' eye. My father grew up in an orphanage and worked several jobs to pay his way through law school. He had no other family to speak of. Whereas my mother lost her father when she was 10 from cancer, and her mother passed when she was 18 from a car accident. She had a free ride to college from the life insurance money herself. That left her wayward sister, Lucille. Lucille had been a problem child her whole life, getting in and out of trouble, doing drugs, getting expelled from school, and giving my grandmother problems. When Victoria, my mother, was made the executor of her mother's estate, she made the tough decision to limit Lucille's pay of her share of the inheritance. With the obvious disdain this caused, there was a falling out with the sisters, and neither spoke to the other again. Why do I keep rehashing this in my mind? Because my mother fucking pisses me the fuck off. Maybe I wouldn't be in this position right now, ready to spread my legs for this greasy old man, if she would have been a little nicer to her sister. Instead, she and my dad, along with my perfect life, burned up in a house fire when I was 13 years old. Maybe had my mother tried a little harder with her sister, I wouldn't be in this position. It is fuzzy in my head what happened. Hell, my parents are fuzzy in my mind with all these drugs they're pumping in me. When child services reached out to my next of kin, who do you think they found? You guessed it. My piece of shit Aunt Lucille. She not only received the lump sum inheritance meant for my future, but she received what she called an investment, a new piece of ass to sell besides her own. Now she had me, or more importantly, a new piece of flesh to peddle. Knock. Shit, the John is here. Okay, let's put a fake smile on and stumble over to the door in these ridiculous heels he requested. Opening the door, I could smell his cologne, almost gagging. He smiled at me, pushing me to my knees. Walking inside the door, I heard him shut the door and unzip his zipper. Here goes nothing. I had to play the part, or I would suffer. I stuck his flaccid cock in my mouth, feeling it start to perk up. He put his hand in my hair, pulling my head back so I was looking at him. "What's your name, darling?" he asked, leering at me. I pulled back for a moment. "Fancy is my name, sir." He shoved his cock back in my mouth as he thrust his hips back and forth, chanting my name. Oh, let me redo that voice because apparently that's one of the other voices. "What's your name, darling?" he asked, leering at me. I pulled back for a moment. "Fancy is my name, sir." He shoved his cock back in my mouth as he thrust his hips back and forth, chanting my name. Robert's point of view. This bitch on her knees is melting me. I'm going to have to talk to Zeke about renting her for the weekend. Fancy. Isn't that a song? She is definitely making my cock sing. I only paid for a blowjob and to fuck her and to fuck her in her pussy. Damn, I wished I would have bought the ass. It's too late now. Last time I did more than I paid for, Zeke broke my arm. He is a mean son of a bitch. Maybe because that was with his wife though. I mean, he is a mean son of a bitch. Maybe because that was with his wife though. Nasty slag couldn't get me off with a blow, so I thought she'd owe me her cunt. He didn't agree since I didn't pay for it. For his wife, I wouldn't pay extra, but for Fancy, she might be worth purchasing for good. They just added her to the list of girls that could be rented. Take everything off but the shoes. She nodded and started to strip. She saw me watching, so she made a show of it. I was hard as a rock again. I want those legs wrapped around my neck as I tear that pussy up. Understand, Fancy? Yes, sir. Good girl. I was very pleased with her so far. She laid down on the bed. She was thin. Her ribs very visible with some bruising, no doubt courtesy of her boss. I approved of everything except the drug-filled gaze she had. Once I owned her, she would have to detox. No whore of mine was going to have to shoot up just to fuck me. When I allowed her to speak, it would be so she could beg me to fuck her. And for that, she needed to have a clear head. Fancy. I'd never meant to connect with anyone. I'm not allowed to get close. My sole purpose in life, according to the lecture I hear every day, is to pay my Aunt Lucille reparations for how my mother treated her. I'm only allowed to service the men, and occasionally women, that pay my aunt and her pimp/boyfriend for use of my body. When this man, they are all faceless and nameless to me, starts saying he feels a strong connection to me and wants to take me away from this life, how would I like that? I just laugh. My aunt would never let me go. He frowns, but says he's going to talk. He frowns, but says he's going to talk to Zeke. Big mistake. But hey, it's your funeral. I go to the bathroom and clean myself up. He pulled out of the condom while it was still inside of me. Idiot. Gargling the water to get the taste of him out, I check my makeup. I have another appointment in an hour. This one is with a married couple, so should make double what this made. I know they paid for the anything goes package, so it means they can do anything or have me do anything to them that they want. The only thing they can't do is leave permanent marks. Only Lucille and Zeke are allowed to do that to us. Mia, Katie, and I are their three working girls. Zeke doesn't make Lucille work anymore since she gave him the inheritance. She now helps him manage and abuse us. If we don't make the clients happy, it varies between starving us, not that they give us much to eat anyway, 1 meal a day, or our punishment is physical abuse. Just because a bone is broken, that doesn't mean you don't work. If you want to breathe, you work and make money for them. I've been doing this for 5 years now. I've requested more when I first started. I was requested more when I first started. People love teaching a scared young girl about her body and love even more teaching her about theirs. They auctioned me off on a website for my very first experience. Apparently, that is big money. The couple that bought me was a man and woman in their 60s. I was scared and crying. My aunt smacked me hard across the face and told me what she expected. I had to do whatever this couple wanted. I was only 13 and never had any kind of sexual experience, so of course, I didn't know what to expect. The couple looked nice and were very friendly when they picked me up. They explained I would be spending the weekend, but wouldn't need to bring anything with me. The man went into the office with Zeke, while the woman and I sat with Aunt Lucy in the living room. The woman told me to call her grandma. I looked at Lucille, unsure of what to do. She glared at me. You heard what she said. You do everything they tell you to, or you will be punished when you get home. Thankfully, most of it is a blur. They gave me the drugs as soon as I got into their car to relax and injected me with them at regular intervals the entire weekend. They seemed rather pleased when they dropped me off, so I must have done what I was supposed to do. I get blips and glimpses in my mind, but nothing really connects, thank the Christ. Mia and Katie were runaways that were living on the street. To them, this was a better way of, of life than digging through a garbage can. Even if they only, sometimes I can see my glasses and sometimes I can't this close. Sorry about that. Benzie, are you the only one on here tonight? Where's everybody else at? Anybody else chatting? See, 4 of you on there. Mia and Katie were runaways that were living on the street. To them, this was a better way of life than digging through a garbage can, even if they only were given 1 meal a day. Katie was so used to it that when Zeke used her as a punching bag, she didn't even flinch anymore. She stood there and let him get his aggression out, then dropped to her knees like a good girl and gave him a blow to thank him for his attention. Mia and I still flinched when he struck us, but we tried to keep it down and know our place so as not to make him angrier. It always ended with his cock in our mouth and us thanking him for spending time with us. That was what he liked, and we weren't going to stray from that if we wanted to keep our bones from being broken. Lucille kept us high the majority of the time. I was stuck and couldn't leave. She let me know in no uncertain terms that if I left or tried to get a John to help me, she would slit my throat open, and I knew the crazy bitch would. She truly believed my mother owed her for all the years of abandonment, and I was the payment. Well, my pussy and ass were. Lucille. Slamming the letter down on the table, I was pissed. Zeke, this fucking bullshit lawyer is still holding on to my money because of my wretched sister. How the hell, after that cunt is dead, can she still keep this shit on lock? Luce, calm down. We have Fancy's money, and she's making quite an income herself. We're doing okay, he shrugged. That's not the point, I shrieked. The bitch isn't even suffering from what her mother has put me through. We keep her too hyped up to feel any of the abuse, I whined to him. We keep them all hyped up to control them and keep them compliant, he reminded me. I want her off the smack. Are you sure? He looked at me intensely. Yes, I want her to feel every degrading thing that is happening to her worthless body. Fine, but if this fucks us in the end, I am taking it out on your ass. He glared at me and walked out of the room. That scared me a little, but knowing Fancy was going to get the comeuppance her mother deserved made it better. Zeke. Crazy bitches losing her mind over family drama I really don't give a shit about. If she thinks for 1 minute I would choose her over Fancy, well, she shouldn't have brought that wench into my life. As far as I'm concerned, Fancy is my hottest commodity. If Lucy needs to be put out to pasture, I will not hesitate to replace her with her niece. On my way to pick Fancy up for her next appointment with the married couple, I called the wife to iron out the plans. I would let Lucy's idea play out. Hell, it might be fun to see the pain on the girl's face as long as she stayed compliant. Fancy. Leaving to go to my next appointment, I saw Zeke outside waiting in the SUV to drive me in. In order to rent us, you had to respond to his ad on the dark net. There, he negotiated prices and what you were allowed to do to us. You could purchase anything from just a blowjob, vaginal sex, anal sex, or the package Zeke called Anything Goes. In that package, you literally could use any orifice we had. If there was a couple or more than one person, you paid him extra. You kept tight details. He kept tight details on his bookkeeping. If you crossed him and did more than what you paid for, he would hurt you. He would no qualms. He had no qualms about it. Opened the car door and slid in the seat. Zeke leered at me, giving me a toothless grin. He nodded his head towards the front seat. Sighing, I climbed out of the car and walked around to the passenger front door. I opened it and climbed in beside him. Unzipping his pants, I slid my hand around his dick and ducked my head down. I finished him off right before we made it to the next couple's house. They were in their late 30s and looked like your average couple. She took one look at me and wrapped her hand around my hair to pull me in for a kiss. After unlocking lips with me, the real fun began. What you think, Vincy? Uh-huh. Our stuff is dark. Shelby. Finally, they pulled up. Oh, she was a beauty indeed. When they said her name was Fancy, I wasn't sure what to think. Now that I've seen her, I know that scumbag who owns her is actually telling the truth. She is heirs for the night, so she better be prepared. After I tear myself away from those generous lips, I want to establish dominance with her. Yanking her by her hair, I drag her through the hallway into the bedroom. Left on her face, I continue to drag her to the cage we had constructed for these occasions when we rent the girls. Vernon, my husband, finally gets rid of the idiot who brought her here. He comes in looking at her and rubbing his crotch. It takes everything I have not to shake my head. Man is gross as but he pays for my dalliances with these girls, so I have to bite my tongue. Trying to think of the right voice. Do you want to be alone with her, pet? No, that's not a good voice. Do you want to be alone with her, pet? He asked me. I contemplate it, but I know if I let him play now, he will leave her to me for the night. No, you can stay. He smiles at me like a damn Cheshire cat. He disgusts me, but I keep him around for his money. I look directly at her as she cowers in the cage. She is a beauty, but you can tell she has been rode hard and put away wet. It's really a shame I get bored so easily because if I were to keep a pet long term, I could see her being my pick. I want her to know she's going to be up all night. When I open this cage, you will crawl out to us and will be expected to stay on your knees like the dirty bitch you are. Do you understand? I saw her jaw tighten as she nodded yes. Smiling, this gave me renewed faith that she was going to be fun to break tonight. I know you were given that ridiculous name, Fancy, after the country song, but in my eyes, you are just another whore piece of trash. Don't ever forget that. She looked at me directly in the eye and smiled. Yes, ma'am. You are not allowed to. You are not allowed to speak here, whore. I hissed at her. She looked at the ground, but I swear the bitch was still smirking. Fancy. Ooh, what we got on here? I see Jackie is in the house, and there's Emery. Hey, Emery, welcome aboard. Ooh, we got 6 people on here now. Bring them on, bring them on, bring them on. Fancy. My name might be Fancy, but my life is in a fucking country music song. I am used goods, and there is no uptown for me. I know that damn song inside and out. because Lucy sings it all the damn time, which is why she chose to call me that name. So I guess I'm a fucking dog all night for these two idiots. The woman looks at me with a sadistic stare, but if she thinks she's going to do anything that hasn't already happened to me, she is sadly mistaken. She opened the can. I crawled out like a dutiful pet when a foot connects with my stomach. The whoosh of air comes out of my mouth and I fall over in pain. Get back up, I hear her say. I manage to get back on my knees, glaring at her. She grabs the back of my hair, hissing at me to stare at the floor. My eyes lower as I gasp, still trying to breathe. Strip your clothes off without looking at us and get up, she commanded. I took them off and realized that no one had injected me with any drugs. Great. That meant not only was I going to feel every single degrading thing, I was going to remember it. Back on my knees, I waited for her next order. I felt someone placing a blindfold over my face. While that bothered me some, I knew they would have purchased services from Zeke before or he wouldn't allow them to purchase this package so they would know the consequences if they went too far. Now crawl to me. If you miss me, there will be repercussions. Is she fucking nuts? How would I know if she moved or not? I started crawling in the general direction I thought she may be in. Of course, I was wrong. I heard her say, "Stupid bitch. Can't even find her master," as I felt her husband shove his dick in my ass. No lube. He rammed in dry. I squeaked out a protest. It hurt and I could feel my ass ripping. But my squeaking only earned me a slap in the face. I told you there would be repercussions. If you want him to use lube next time, and there will be a next time, you better learn to follow directions. My body was being ravaged by him as he pumped and pumped into my bloody ass. Finally, I heard him grunt and felt the stinging of his load as he emptied inside of me. I thought, well, if that was the worst of it, I could trudge through. Then I felt the crack of the whip as it connected with my back. As I started to scream, she shoved her pussy in my face and started grinding on me. Crack after crack of the whip and her pussy face fucking me was almost more than I could bear. I always hated the drugs, but at this minute, I wished for them. Hey, Ori. I tried not to cry, but the pain was indescribable. Leeann, sometimes they forget, or Leeann, Emery, sometimes they forget to tell you, but Ori is actually Nina. She's the one she's my PA that talks to you about all the books and stuff. So if you don't know who Ori is, that's who she is. I tried not to cry, but the pain was indescribable. In 5 years, I had never been so brutalized that I remember. Finally, it was over. She had orgasmed and left my face a mess. He stopped hitting me with the whip, and I tried to focus on breathing and not the pain, until he poured what felt like acid on my back. It smelled like rubbing alcohol, but I swear to fuck it felt like acid. I took my blindfold off and looked at her. I could tell she was pissed. I need to call Zeke. He doesn't allow customers to leave marks on us, and he will want to know this. I sounded braver than I felt. Shelby. That insolent little bitch. How dare she? Zeke is quite aware of how I treat whores, and he encourages it. I pay him well to do what the fuck I want. Now, I can call him and let him know that you are a worthless cunt who refuses to perform if you would like. She looked at me uncertainly. I guess she was unaware that they gave me full carte blanche to do what I wanted as long as the marks wouldn't scar. She shook her head no and lowered. Oh. She looked at me uncertainly. I guess she was unaware that they gave me full carte blanche to do what I wanted as long as the marks wouldn't scar. She shook her head no and lowered her eyes to the floor. I nodded at Vernon as he took the collar and leash over to her. He attached the collar. Now, I assume you must need to use the bathroom. You will be given 3 bathroom breaks, so make sure you hold it and don't have accidents. Vernon will walk you outside and show you which spot in the yard you may do your business. Her head popped up and she gawked at me. I grabbed her face. What, bitch? You are a dog. You will be treated as such. Quit looking so damn shocked at everything and be thankful I am allowing you to use the bathroom at all. Fancy. I am not sure I have ever been so humiliated as to when this man took me outside by leash and walked me over to a corner of their fenced-in backyard and expected me to pee. I turned the hose on so you could hike your leg up and rinse if you wanted to. He smiled, obviously very proud of himself. I glanced over at the shed and saw a hose hanging from it streaming water. That only made my bladder scream louder at me. Damn it, I was going to have to squat in front of him and pee. If not, I would be more miserable than I already was. He looked at me while I awkwardly emptied my bladder, and then I crawl over to the hose and lift my leg up, trying to get the trickle of water to hit the right spot. I hear him unzipping his pants right as I get the water to hit me in between my legs. Then I feel a hot stream hit my back. He was pissing on me. I'm starting to get shaky from the lack of drugs, and it is honestly making me want to strangle the idiot. I heard him say, "Take a few sips of water. You won't be getting any for a while." Taking him at his word, I let the water from the hose drip in my mouth. I was starting to sweat a little, so it felt good. He tugged on the leash, telling me it was time to go back inside. I was led back inside where the woman told him to take me to my cage. I was sweating and shaking. I don't remember falling asleep. "Hey, Miss Shirley." Shelby. "What did you do to her?" I screamed at my imbecile husband. Nothing, he stammered. "Bullshit. I saw you piss on her like you were marking her. Did you make her swallow it?" "No, I swear, Shelby. She just started shaking out there when I took her to pee. I let her get a drink of water from the hose." "I'm calling that son of a bitch Zeke and getting my money back. This bitch looks like she is dying. I'm not paying for defective merchandise." Dialing Zeke on the phone, I explained what was going on, how unhappy I was. I did after all paying double for his best girl, and he sent me this. To emphasize my point, the girl retched all over the cage at that precise moment. Zeke sighed heavily into the phone. "She isn't defective. She's going through withdrawal." He was coming to pick me up, bringing a new girl, and refunding my money. I told him he didn't need to be so generous. I didn't want to owe him anything. But he explained I was a good customer and he didn't want to get out. He didn't want it to get his merchandise wasn't quality. Translation, he didn't want me to run my mouth. Within the hour, I had a new toy, put my money back in my pocket, and the sick girl out of my house. Zeke. I fucking told Luce to take her off cold turkey was a mistake. Does she not think of the consequences? She would be thinking of it when I take it out on her hide tonight. I personally will be getting repaid one way or another. Fancy moaned in the back seat. "We're almost home. Do not hurl in my car. Understand?" Fancy. My head felt like a nuclear bomb was going to explode in it. All right, I didn't bring anything to drink. Well, I got gum because my mouth is getting dry. Let me just do this. That way I don't chew in front of you guys. My head felt like a nuclear bomb was going to explode in it. I was nauseated and my muscles were jerking everywhere. Maybe I was dying. The fact that didn't entirely bothered me some. We finally made it home and Zeke took me straight to my bed. He gave me a bucket, a bottle of water, and a cool washcloth. I dozed off to the sound of him and Lucille screaming at each other and what I think was the sound of a hand hitting flesh. I had the most vivid dreams. Well, clips, really. I'm not sure if they were memories or just images my mind decided to make up to terrorize me about the night my mom and dad died. It had been so long since I thought about them, I almost forgot what they looked like. The scenes I saw didn't make sense. They showed me setting the fire to my house on that fateful night. I know I was at a friend's house that night. Could I have snuck out and killed my parents? Why would I do that? Blips of my childhood kept coming through. My father in my bed night after night, shoving his dick in my mouth. My mother slapping me across the face when I told her. My memories, they were all coming back. But were they real? Finally, all right, Lucille. Finally, 4 days later, Fancy drug her ass out of her room. I had taken enough ass beatings for her this week. Hell, Zeke even put me back on the roster to be rented out because the princess needed to detox. It It's about fucking time you got up. She looked at me with disdain. Why did you take the drugs away? You enjoy me being in pain, don't you? I laughed. I couldn't help it. Fancy, all you are is a paid piece of ass, and it's time you remember your place. You will spread your legs to the highest bidder and smile to every depraved act that is asked of you. I wanted to make sure you felt and remembered it also. I smiled my most sadistic smile at her. Your mama sealed your fate when she wrote me off. Now you will spend the rest of your life paying for her sins. She looked at me in shock at first. Then she nodded her head and walked into the bathroom. Fancy. As I grew stronger, the memories came back full force. I had stayed all night at Bree's house. When the house was quiet from everyone sleeping, I slipped out and walked the 2 streets over to my house. I crept in through our back door and quietly climbed the stairs. I wedged a piece of wood in the bottom of the outside of their bedroom door so they couldn't get out. Then I set the house ablaze. Then I went back to Bree's house and fell asleep until her parents woke me up with the news about the house fire and death of my parents. I acted like the shock-stricken daughter appropriately, and they never questioned it. I thought I was leaving the abuse. In my teenage mind, I thought because we had no family, I would be able to live with my best friend until I turned of age. I never factored in Lucille. Went from one place of horror to a house of disrepute. Now that I remember, if Lucille thought she was safe, she should have checked my alibi closer and kept my mind fogged up. No longer was I the scared girl. I was a capable girl of taking my life back. Zeke walked in the bathroom while I was taking a shower. He pulled back the shower curtain. You ready to work tonight? Never wanted to pass up a buck. I nodded yes. He smiled, smacking me on my ass. Good. You are scheduled with Robert. I nodded. I may be able to use him to help me get away from Zeke and Lucille. He wanted me to come home with him for good. As meek and mild as he is, I can get away from him easily. A few hours later, I was on my knees with Robert face fucking me. He seemed to enjoy slamming my head down on his small mirror. Good girl, Fancy, he murmured. One day, I'm gonna make you mine. This was my chance. I looked into his eyes as he shoots his load into my mouth. May I speak? I asked demurely. Of course, darling. Lucille is holding me back. Zeke said if I pay him off, he will get me away from her if you're willing to take me tonight. He is tired of her jealousy. Robert, Could this really be happening? Everything was falling into place, especially since he seemed to be clean now. She seemed to be clean now. You realize I will expect you to obey me if I'm going to take you on and take care of you. Yes, sir. I smiled. She smiled eagerly. Oh, this slut knew how to make me weak in the knees. Okay. How much is this going to cost me? Nothing, sir. I have the money. I want to pay for it. If you take me back to our place, I will run inside, take care of things, and we can be off to my training tonight. She smiled. If that's all right with you, sir. This was almost too good to be true. Of course she was eager. She didn't know what was in store for her at my farm. Okay, beautiful. Let's go. Let's go then. I would much rather have you at our house than here. She smiled a smile that lit her face up. Thank you, sir. Fancy. We pulled up outside my place 2 hours before Zeke was supposed to come get me. I knew the other girls were out for appointments, so they wouldn't be in the way. Robert tried to be noble and wanted to come in with me. I helped him off with it, but with it would be less messy if I did it on my own. I slipped in and heard their bed springs creaking, so I knew they were fucking. That was a lucky break. The windows in our office, I'm so sorry. The windows in our place all had bars on them for security so people couldn't break in. It also prevented people from escaping through them if the need were there. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and took my trusty matchbook with some lighter fluid I found under the sink. Going into the bedroom, they were so loud neither of them heard me. Idiots. I sliced her ankles first, cutting the tendons. He didn't notice, thinking she was in the throes of ecstasy until he felt her blood spray on his legs. By that time, I was slicing his tendons through the thin skin of his ankles. Fancy, what the fuck do you think you're doing? He screamed. I doused him in lighter fluid as they tried to squirm off the bed, lighting a match, then setting the whole book on fire. I looked at them both and said, getting retribution. Throwing the fire on them as they lit up, I shut the bedroom door. I thought about two more Reba McEntire songs that would fit. A sense of calm came over me. Wait a minute. Throwing the fire on them as they lit up, I shut the bedroom door, walked out of the house, and locked up. A sense of calm came over me. I did it. I finally was I was going to be free. I climbed in the car with Robert and smiled. It's all good. That's the last thing I remember after feeling the prick of the needle in my arm. Robert. Seeing the flames coming through the bars of the home Fancy was leaving, I realized what she had done to leave. It was good fortune for me, and I couldn't honestly blame her. Zeke and her aunt were pieces of work. Taking her to the farm was the highlight of my life. She was my finest hour. I couldn't wait until she woke up and saw her new home. I so want to leave it right there, y'all. I really, really do. I am 3/4 of the way through this book. Emery, what do you think? Should I leave it there? Mm, really want to just leave it there. Damn. I want to mess with your mind so bad. Especially when I read the first line of the next chapter. Mm, Emery, some guidance here. What do you want me to do? Because I almost feel like if I keep reading, I need to read the whole story. Because it's so close. I mean, Miss Shirley, you think I need to leave it there? Just stop right there so you guys got to go. Or he must be off walking. Okay, I'll keep going, but I'll probably end up reading the whole book. Emery, I hope you don't get mad at me. Fancy. I woke up in his cage. Now I'm tethered by a chain on my leg. I was dumbfounded. How could I get myself into yet another prison? Please, someone tell me this is a bad dream. Looking around, I see I'm in some kind of shed and I'm looking at an old hanging board on the wall that has a corkscrew, hatchet, and rusty hammer. That is the only thing for me to stare at. In what seems like days, although I'm sure it was only hours, he walked in with a bucket of food. Tonight, I want you to get comfortable in your new home. You have to earn your way inside to a real bed, he smiled. But if you behave and are a good girl, then I will allow it. I stared at him. Had he lost his fucking mind? This is how you always plan to treat me? I bought my freedom to be with you so you could be worse than them. I was pissed and he knew it. Now he looked pissed, actually made him look scary. Bought your freedom? Bought your fucking freedom? He unlocked the cage, grabbed the rusty hammer, came inside, and grabbed me. I saw the fucking flames, so you did nothing but committed murder. You did, however, give yourself to me, so you will learn to obey me, and I promise you this. He made himself nose to nose with me. You will. You scream your mercy, scream for mercy. He grabbed my left hand before I knew what was happening. He placed it against the bar in the cage, swung that hammer so hard you could hear the bones break. Then looked at me as I shrieked in pain and said, "Now make yourself useful." Then he shoved me to my knees. And this, Jackie, is why I don't read this shit. Robert, fucking bitch will learn her place even if I have to shove it down her throat. Pun intended. Gagging her on my dick, I made sure she knew that if I didn't want her to breathe, she wouldn't. I let her stand up after I shot my load down her throat. Now, apologize. I'm sorry, sir, she said. Yes, you are. I said, still pissed at her outburst. Those are for you. I pointed at the bucket and plate of food. And this, I walked out to get the folded blanket I had kept out of the cage. Locking the cage back up, I went inside for the night. Oh, I've read much darker too, but this is the kind of shit that I can't stand it. It just drives me crazy. I'll probably have nightmares tonight. So you guys better appreciate this. Fancy. I'm not sure why he thought he needed to lock the cage since he had my ankle shackled, other than he was asserting his power. Let's put it this way, misery, if I think about it too hard, still gives me nightmares. I'm not sure why he thought he needed to lock the cage since he had my ankle shackled, other than he was asserting his power. Clearly, provoking him wasn't the answer. So now what? Play along? Maybe he would slip up and allow me into the house. Then I could get away. Sitting down, I did the obvious, trying to pull the chain that was attached to the clamps on my ankles from the wall. It didn't budge. I didn't expect it to, especially only with one hand, but I had to try. The clamps, they were an interesting concept. When I tried to pull them apart, little metal teeth popped out and cut into my ankle. It was too painful to continue. I looked everywhere for a keyhole or code box or anything. There didn't seem any apparent way of taking these off, and it seemed he had them welded on. He had them welded on. Assuming he had cameras out here watching me, I hid my face into the blanket so he wouldn't see my tears of frustration. I finally dozed off. The next day was pretty much the same. A whole bunch of nothing, staring at the rusty tools, running through in my head what he would do with those, sent shivers through my soul. He never came out, no food, no anything. I knew it was a nightmare again because I could see the dark light in the crack. I knew it was nighttime again because I could see the dark light in the crack of the door of the shed. It was evening time the next day, and I think it was mild shock from my broken hand, no food, and being dehydrated. He smirked when he saw me. Are you ready to behave? Robert. Good. She knows she needs me. Her hand was mangled. I'm guessing she has never had a tetanus shot. I will bring one home from the hospital tomorrow. Right now, I have fluid I can run for dehydration and antibiotics. She gets nothing for pain. Bitch doesn't deserve it. Please forgive me, sir. All right, that surprised me. I wasn't prepared for her to give up that easy. Maybe it's the shock. We'll see when she is stronger. Right now, we will get you healthy. We can talk about forgiveness another day. I kissed her chastely on her forehead. I mean, I wasn't a monster. The thing I need you to remember, Fancy, is that you are used goods, and that is all you will ever be. I was nice enough to take you in. I took the IV kit I had brought from the hospital, cleansed the area I was going to stick the IV in, and inserted the tube. Starting a bag of lactated ringers, I ran a piggyback of Levaquin for the infection. Being a physician in a small rural town had its perks. I would have to keep an eye on her to make sure she didn't have a reaction. Checking over her as she dozed in and out, I saw the blood spilling out of the clamps around her ankle. They hurt me, she mumbled when she saw me looking at the damage. You can't try to take them off. They are designed to hurt you. The more you try to jiggle them off, the more the spikes come out until it completely cuts off your ankle. I shrugged at her wide eyes. You don't want to lose your ankle, do you? She shook her head no, then the tears started. The ankle clamps were a friend's design. They really were brilliant. He had created them using them on his wife. Well, wives. His first one lost a foot. Fancy. The next day, I felt like I could at least get up. He had given he had been in and out through the night, changing the IV bags. I had a tray of food waiting on me. My hand was pretty nasty looking. Wolfing down the sandwich he brought, it occurred to me I should have saved some in case he didn't come back for a couple of days. It was too late. I was tired. He came back out that night, took my IV out, cleaned my hand, which was excruciating, then laid another plate of food down. I started to go towards the plate when he stopped me. You have to earn that, he said with an evil smile on his face. I nodded, wearily dropping to my knees when he kicked the top half of me down also. You are giving that ass tonight, he said gleefully. The only thing I could say was he actually used lube, and he was tiny, although I put the show on that he wanted. That he was so huge, it was tearing me up. He looked so satisfying. Men were such fucking assholes. He crawled up to my ear and whispered, Always remember, Fancy, I am king of your world. You may eat now, he said smugly, pinching me so hard on my ass it made me yelp. Robert. If you guys hear something that sounds like a cow, according to Vincy, it's my bulldog down here snoring. So I felt like I owned the universe. I was a god at the hospital, and now I was one at my house. Nothing could bring me down at work all day. All I could think about was her frail body shaking under me as I commanded her ass. Tonight, perhaps since I felt so good, I may allow her some stimulation of her own if she behaves. Leaving the hospital, I hummed all the way home. I was surprised to see a sheriff's car in my driveway. Getting out of my car cautiously, I see Sheriff's Deputy Dane Fuller. Good evening, Dane. This is a surprise. He stood there looking at me with his chest puffed out like all law enforcement when they are in official business. His hand was on the butt of his gun. Hey, Robert, we're investigating an arson murder. It seems, he cleared his throat, your car was seen in the vicinity when it caught fire. Ah, a rebellion witness? A reliable witness? I asked. Dane started laughing. Could you warn me? Come see her. You will see why she's worth the risk, I said proudly. You are just lucky I picked it up, Dane chuckled. I have to head back to the station, but how about dinner? Excellent. I was happy for him to see her. He and I grew up together and knew right away what we expected from our women. Fancy. Hearing a car in the gravel, I waved to see if it was him. No one else seemed to visit. He came out with a simple white shift for me to throw on. He ordered me to step outside the cage. The chain was long enough to reach outside the entrance. I walked out, now happy, not knowing what was going to happen. Maybe he was growing a conscience. Of course not. He threw the slip inside the cage, which confused me until I felt the spray on my skin. He had kept me nude the entire time, and I had not bathed at all, so clearly I didn't smell fantastic. He was spraying me with a high-powered hose that had soap mixed in. Up, down, up, down. Then he told me to open my legs and lift them one at a time so he could get every crevice. At this point, my left hand was not functional. The spray was so strong it slothed off pieces of dead flesh from the hand. When he was done, I fell down. He told me to get back in the cage and dry off with my blanket. I needed to put the slip on. At this point, I wondered if I could get the ankle brackets to cut my ankle off. Maybe the infection in my stump, hand, and blood loss would kill me. But with my luck, he would revive me so I could feel every degradation and ounce of pain. He had officially broken me. After sitting on the ground, feeling sorry for myself, I heard voices. Wait, is it more than one person, or am I hallucinating? Robert and another man, no, a cop, walk in the shed. Is this my salvation? I start to think I have a freedom again. I stand up. Please help me, I plead to the officer. He looks at me surprised. I see you still need to train her. He laughs as he looks at Robert. Robert sighed and looked angry. Yes, apparently she doesn't know how to behave in front of company. She will be taught another lesson tonight. He looked at that corkboard. Perhaps the corkscrew tonight. He glared at me for embarrassing him. Now, come up here and properly let me introduce you. I walked up, knowing it would only be worse if I didn't. Dane, this is Fancy, Robert said to his officer. She is my newest acquisition, he said proudly. Nice, Dana praised her. Once she starts to obey, she can meet Adele, and we can rent them two for one. Roger was nodding, agreeing with him. They were chatting like I was a car rental, not a person. Try her out, I heard Robert say. I started to panic when they came into the cage. I knew this was only going to result in pain for me. How could an officer of the law, someone who had sworn to protect the innocent, be part of this fucked up institution? Dane looked darker than Robert. Robert tried to look like he was sure of himself, but I could see he was taking cues from Dane. On your knees, whore. Dane had a sadistic gleam in his eyes as he took his holster and belt off. I didn't get down quick enough for Robert, so he kicked me in the stomach. I dropped down, only able to hold myself up with my good hand. I felt the shift getting lifted. My body couldn't stop shaking. I tried so hard to go into a different place inside my head. I knew I was in trouble when he told Robert to stand on my hand, to stand on my head to hold me down. Dane said, The next time your owner talks to you, you will be obedient and respectful, slut. He laughed, then shoved his nightstick into my ass. I blacked out from the pain. Roger woke me up with smelling salts so I could feel it all. My rectum was ripped completely. All I could hear was my own horrified screaming. Whether or not the men were talking to me, I didn't know. All I knew was I saw the officers back to me talking to Robert and his holster lying close to where I was. Without thinking about what I was doing, I grabbed his gun from his holster, clicked the safety off, and shot him in the back of the head. Without blinking, I turned the gun on Robert and fired on him. He was still breathing, so I fired another shot to make sure he was dead. Knowing I had to finish, that my life had been extinguished a long time ago, I grabbed the officer's walkie, pushed the button, and said, "My name is Fancy. I am not free. I am used goods." My last thought was, freedom is never free, as I lifted the barrel of the gun to my temple. The end. Oh, by the way, Emery's HEA, I mean, she's happy. All right, there you go, ladies. You got a whole book tonight, so you bitches better be happy. I don't want to hear no shit. It's even dark, Jackie and Vincy and Ordering. So you better thank Miss Emery for writing this book for you. And when I have nightmares, I'm going to call all of you and I'm going to cry through the phone. And I'm going to say, you bitches owe me. Thank you, Miss Emery. I really appreciate this. I appreciate the chance to read this dark book. So come back anytime. Just get with Ori / Nina or Jackie, since Jackie seems like she's head of your fan club. Jeez, bitches. All right. So next reading will be next Wednesday. I have no idea who it is, so you guys will just have to wait and see. My team, we got our Saturday night meeting, so be ready at 8:00 Saturday night, and we'll discuss the IOU that Miss Shirley owes. So, all right, everybody, have a good evening and happy reading.